Welcome to This Week in Events for Friday, the 15th of August, mid-August already. I'm joined with Jill Hawkins.
Good morning.
And Paul Richardson of Vivid Inc.
Good morning.
And we're going to talk about, topics this week. The death of event apps. Great article from Presso. Jill, you're going to want to mention about UK event job ads.
Yep, they're up 14% in June, but regionally they are up, which is an interesting thing for us to discuss.
Definitely. And Paul, you bring us a video.
I do. Video I watched between James Lancaster interviewing Gary Austin Brown talking about AI, which is a subject we keep returning to, but it is absolutely core to everything we do about inherent bias in the system. And is it biased? Is it racist? Are the prompts and programming that's going into it as we teach it, taking the prompts and biases that are inherent in people anyway? So, yeah, interesting stuff. Are we teaching AI to be a nasty, racist little bigot?
Well, thank you for being great with that. Yes. So where should we start today?
I think we start with Bob.
Yeah, it's got to be your turn, Bob.
Okay, my turn. Oh, blimey. Okay, so interesting article from Presso this week on LinkedIn, where they talk about the uncomfortable truth about event apps. And to be honest, everybody I talk to when I attend a trade show or any other, mass attended event that's got an event app, most of the people say, no, I haven't bothered to install it this time. Has the idea of an event app, it's one of those things that would be, wouldn't it be cool if we were to provide it with our attendees, but not necessarily asking the attendees if that's what they really want?
I think it's a really interesting article, and that I've always felt with event apps that the pain point of actually downloading it, filling all your information for a one-day event is a little bit over the top, and that it's actually got to give you more than you give it. It's got to be of benefit. So most people actually download the event app on their way to the event, unless they're actually incentivized in some way to actually go on first. You do it on the train. And unless it's easy to do, you're not going to do it.
Well, you're not going to do it because, first of all, you have to find it in the App Store. Then you have to make sure it's actually the real one, not some imitation. Then you've got to, as you say, fill in all your details. And then it lives on your phone only for the duration of while you're at that event. But we could also look at the other flip side of that. So when the app builders, and a lot of companies who build apps for your event, they've actually got to guide their clients through not having it all in black, so it's almost impossible to look at. They've got to go through encouraging reasonable content, and then on top of that, they've got to go through the entire process of getting the app into the various stores in the first place. There's a lot of friction to getting an app out there, not just from the user's point of view, but from the developer's point of view as well.
I think then you end up with what I've seen that's good is almost like a standardization where you've got the same company doing the app for several events. And so you keep that app on your phone and then you just put a new code in. So you don't have a unique app for every event you go to. You go back into the same app that you've used before, different code. Oh, ta-da, here's a whole new thing. So you've got that level of familiarity that you know what you're doing with it, but it's still got to give you more than you give it.
So in the Presso article, they are discussing progressive event apps. I think that's it's a different terminology for the same thing, which is progressive web apps. They kind of live in your browser. It's all made out of JavaScript and web pages and all that sort of thing. But if you think about it, if all you're going to do is scan a QR code and there it is on your screen within your browser, you're cutting out a lot of the difficult processes, not just from the user's point of view of adoption of the, you're not having to adopt an app anymore, but from the developer's point of view, where you can just dive in on your web development team and you're not having to go through the process of, App Store submissions. So you could actually cut down the time it takes for that thing, whether you call it a web app, whether you call it an event app or not. It takes less time to get it into people's hands.
Yeah. I mean, clever websites have been around for a long, long time. We're talking, I worked with a company 10, 15 years ago who said, no, we're not launching an event app. It's just going to be a really, really clever website that looks like an app, but it's still a website. And it just meant it could be updated easier. It was smaller to download. And you could just access it on your phone and it looked like an app, but it was just a website. So yeah, these things have been around for a long time.
But have we caught in a trap of modern smartphones have apps? We have an event, therefore we need to have an app. Is there sort of like not even considering a web page, a very clever web page, where you might actually have much more control over it than, I mean, I'm running out of words now, but it's basically, do we need to have an app? I mean, are we caught in a trap of phones have apps? We need to have an app for our thing.
I think if the app gives you some sort of engagement interaction, so you can vote on it, if it gives you a intuitive floor plan, say, so you can put in where you are and it will take you to the stand that you want to get to.
Don't talk to me about floor plans. Oh, God, no.
But then that's reliant on the organizer being really organized and having a final floor plan.
Why is it your event app, it's got a PDF file of your floor map? The only thing is we've all got 6-inch screens, so you can't get an overview of where you are. Not that the numbering system ever makes sense. I'm a rant mode now. And then you try and expand it. You go, oh, that's the one. Where's it next to? Then you make it smaller and now you don't know where you are.
Yeah, exactly. You need an intuitive.
Please don't. I mean, event apps, well, can we map out the floor plan and have GPS to tell you how close or how far away you are from where you want to be? I mean,
absolutely. Yeah, I've seen apps. Again, 10, 15 years ago, there were apps out there that you could actually write, where am I? Oh, you're here. I need to get to that stand. Here's your route. And it would plot out your route for you. And that's really, really handy. The other handy thing that I like is when you could get an alert on your way to the event saying, oh, actually, we've got a bottleneck in registration. Go and grab a coffee. By the time you come here, you'll be able to just walk straight through. So you've got those live updates that are actually useful. That's what you want.
Well, what about push notices that the stage is about to be occupied by a very important speaker? And you get like a 15-minute warning so you can go and find a seat.
That's a dodgy area, I think, in that you don't want the organizer bombarding you with sales messages. Come and see this stand. Come and see this stand. You'd end up turning the app off.
I wouldn't say it's a sales message. I would say it is our program of events within the venue is moving on. The next one is somebody's going to come and talk about AI on the stage. Do you want to attend? If you do, go now to get a seat.
Yeah. Or to register, to actually say beforehand, I'm interested in that event, that event, that event, that event. That, yes, we'll send you an alert 15 minutes before each one. That would be handy.
Those kind of things are in existence in Hall. We did some work on NHS Confed Expo, and the dynamic signage inside the hall was spectacular. That was picking up. The screens around the place were a rolling program, and alerts were going up and around as to what the next things were, and people could. I think people could sign up for them. I can't remember exactly whether they could or not, but it's a great idea. The challenge comes is when you have multiple stages with multiple speakers on multiple subjects, and you as a visitor go, I want to see Jill Hawkins talking about that. But I want to see Bob Tuvey talking about that, and they're both on between 2 and 3. And because, as we all know, PR agencies always get the graveyard shift at 2 o'clock in any show. you select those, then what do you do then? Because if the organizer's basing any kind of metrics on the back of who's registered for each session, they've got me registered for both until I realize there's a clash. Flipping back to Confed Expo, which was a great one, because they were recording and live streaming and making content available on demand, I could actually go and see Jill in person and then go to a thing called, I can't remember, it's a lounge area where they had all the content from the stages on screens, but you could also stick in a QR code and open up the content stream from the session you missed, and it would then present that as on-demand content to you. So I could go and watch Jill do her stuff, then go into the lounge, then download or access the stream content from Bob straight afterwards. So I don't miss my sessions, or I might run for the train and then watch it on the train going home. But if the app would have to, I think there's an element of connecting the things together. So how does the app talk to the show? How does the show content talk to the app? But I don't know. I think perhaps it'd be interesting to see what the age profile is. I use apps all the time, always have been reasonably tech savvy. But I'm in your camp, Jill, in that I'll be walking through the entranceway, down the main plaza at Excel going, oh, damn it, I haven't downloaded the app, right? So I'll get a copy at a little cost, I'll go sit down and then go, right, I'll download the app and I know what I want to go and see, but I've got to go and schedule it all there and then. And I don't know whether that late app usage is commonplace. Is it, do people come to the party late on apps? Is that just how we behave? Because if we haven't trained people how to use the apps properly by now, and they've been around quite a while, do we need to alter how we deliver them to fit with the behavior of the visitors?
I think so. And I think that unless there is a benefit to uploading it beforehand, you will always do it on the train. I went to a Venues of Excellence event earlier this year, and they had an app, and you got an email and you were encouraged to go in, download it beforehand. And I did my homework. I downloaded the app, I registered, put a photo in, and I could see who else was attending. And that, to me, that was really, really useful. And that was definitely worth. So there was a reason why I downloaded it, early, to be able to interact like that.
You touched on a thing that I wanted to bring up as well. So let's have an example. You two are going to go to an event. Paul, you've got the app, you're on there. Jill, you didn't bother. So Paul, you see that Jill is on the list. Your app tells you who's attending. There's quite a lot of time you have, A to Z, tap on the letter, you'll see names of people who are attending. Oh, you go, my friend Jill's going. I'll arrange a meeting. In the meantime, Jill, because you don't have the app, you're totally unaware that Paul's made that request. Paul, how would you feel if you send out a request for a meeting and it feels like you've been ignored?
Oh, well, that's nothing new.
Well, for you, maybe, yeah.
Especially by me.
Yeah. I've been ghosted by Jill on so many occasions. The question there is, I've seen apps where speakers' content's there, where exhibitors' content's there, where people can do speed dating online, but you sign in to do that. I've not seen one yet where it says, here's all the people who've registered to attend.
I have.
And do you, with those, do you then confirm that you're happy to give your contact details out? Because again, you're sort of trampling all over data protection regs and things like that. You'd have to tiptoe very carefully about how you make people's data available to the public, because if I can see them, then so can everybody else. So everybody can see everybody else's details. So there's quite a large exchange of data and information there.
There is.
Well, you fill out your profile, so you voluntarily share out depending on how much information you type. It's happened to me because of my position, as a journalist, or whatever you like to call me, that a company will reach out and go, oh, we see you're attending, we'd love to set up a meeting, are you free on the second day? I haven't installed the app. The only notification I've got is an email. But if you're at the show and you may not have access to the email, or you may not want to look at your email because you don't wish to be distracted, if you haven't installed the app, you wouldn't know that someone's reached out. And I don't know how to cure that. Whether if you haven't got the app, you shouldn't be listed as being there, or whether there's some other approach you can take. But I think that's a broken thing about apps.
It brings up an interesting question, doesn't it, though, in terms of perception? Does an organizer, let's say none of us are particularly inclined to want to sign up or get that app. I pull the app up for that show and I'm looking and say, hey, who's going? Oh, 12 people. Oh, well, that's not really very good. Maybe I'll not go then. Do you expose yourself to that both positive and negative? If you open it up and there's 2,500 people attending, you go, I can't miss that. So that seems to be a double-edged sword. You say, you expose your entire. I know, again, sorry about my natural northern cynicism, but you're also exposing your entire visitor audience to your competitors. So
Oh, that's interesting, isn't it? I mean, with the Venues of Excellence one, the app was brilliant. I can't remember the name of the company that did it, but the app was really, really good. You could see who was going, and I think because it was a smaller event and it's a membership organization event, so you probably, it was for the venues that are in Venues of Excellence, and I was there because I represent a couple of venues that are part of that marketing consortium. And it was brilliant. It was really good, and you could vote with it as well. So you had one app that you could do everything with. It wasn't a separate voting platform, which I thought was really good, because can be a frustration when you've got several apps to do several things over an event, and you think, oh, really? And that was really good. And I just think that with a smaller event like that is almost like a membership body, where you're almost expecting those people to be there. It's not Joe Public. It's not a big event like Confex or the Meeting Show, where you've got you've got a very small audience there and a very contained audience. It worked. It really, really worked. And it was great to see those other names. Now, whether those other names were either ticked or not, perhaps that's the way around it, where this is the guest list, but these are the ones that have actually engaged with the app. So you've got two stages. That's a way of work around it if you can do it like that.
I don't know enough about apps to know how well the data can be scraped if it's in a public domain, but certainly on websites, if you've got, and this has been going on for years, if people put their, I don't know, let's say I'm a member of the Whippet and Ferret Fanciers Association.
We always knew that about you.
Yeah, I've got my flat hat to prove it. But if I put my name and details in to that membership group, and that members are published online and there's a contact for that member, then clearly that is an email in public domain. And I think people are so unaware of just how far their data, as in emails, mobile phone numbers, employment stuff, goes on the internet, and how widely available it is. I've seen data scraped where a target marketing list can be pulled together from a competitor's event in 15 to 20 minutes, and you then have all of the exhibitors from that show that you can then target for your newly launched competing show. But I don't know if you can do that for apps, because if you're putting your information on the app, how accessible is that data? I mean, the apps might be a little bit more secure. They might have more built-in security. I'd be lovely to get an app developer on and interrogate them about how that might work.
Definitely. But I've got one other question, which is, considering all the resistance to actually installing the app in the first place, and another thing that also is a bit of resistance, the fact that every year there's a new app that you have to then install, and then you have to re-register and then type in your password. And it seems, if you go to lots of shows, especially ones that happen every year, you're re-registering over and over again. That must be really frustrating. Can we get people to adopt the app, increase the percentage of people adopting the app by actually turning it, instead of a one-off thing, like install this app for 2 days only, then you can uninstall it? We're not turning it into some sort of building a community around the show, where the event app lasts longer.
Oh, every single event out there goes through that. We're not just a one-day event, we're a community. We have these touch points through the year. Every single event out
But
there
they're not, they don't,
but
because
they
they don't put anything
try,
out.
but they try to be, they aspire to be, whether they are on, they definitely aspire to be having all those touch points, whether that's in an email or social media or whatever. But every single event, certainly in the last 10 years, have gone through that cycle of, no, we want a community. I don't know how events feel now, but yeah, they've all been through that.
The thing is,
Would
they
you
say
really,
these things.
yeah, but would you really go onto an app? What's the benefit? What's in it for me to go onto an app after the show?
I know it's a difficult thing to, I don't have an answer to that. But I'm just thinking that if you, I mean, most of the time they don't even record the sessions. They do interviews which may only go out live or may appear on a YouTube channel with 300 subscribers. There's an opportunity to make the content, everything that happens at the show, all the sessions, all the interviews, everything happens. You've got a chance to turn it into content, into little bursts of content.
Of course.
And you can then eke that out throughout the year, and you kind of ramp it up a month or two before the show happens again. And so and if you're not asking people to re-register, all you need is an indication whether you're going or not. You don't need to install the app again and again and again. I'm going to go on about this because I've got to think about apps and I think they're useless. But anyway.
There are some good ones out there, but they have to prove their worthiness. Yeah.
I wish to be fair. I wish to be very fair. The people who develop the apps, they do a great job, but they're only as good as the apps themselves can only be as good as what the client is willing to provide and communicate the ideas that they're wishing to try and make happen. So it's not always the case that it's a bad app. We think the app developer's rubbish. It's a case of we can only be as good as the client allows us to be.
Yeah, very true.
So I think with that, we should move on.
Oh,
we're all going to delete all of our apps.
Yes, it will be banned from all future events. That's great. Anyway, so moving on to the next one. Who's next?
I'll go. Go on.
Go on, Phil.
Oh,
Sure.
I'll
this is good news, isn't it? Well, at least
I think so. There was an article in CNIT this week that said UK event manager job ads up 14% in June. And according to the Office for National Statistics, put my teeth in properly, the total number of online job postings for event managers and organisers across the UK was 4,260 in June, which was an increase of 8% compared to the previous month and a rise of 14% compared to the monthly average for January to May. But the big thing for me, so yes, it's brilliant. We're looking for more people, but we can discuss that. The other thing was that Scotland recorded a 40% increase. The northwest of England experienced a 21% uplift, and Yorkshire and the Humber saw a 21% rise. So are we seeing more regional jobs? Are we seeing more companies advertise further afield? We're not going to be so London centric because of people being able to work from home, etc. Are companies finally realizing that actually we can advertise across the whole of England? Are we seeing more companies, more event agencies launch in those areas, or are they just looking further afield? Are we going to get more national as a industry rather than London centric?
Let's start with a question then. It's great to see news that's outside of the M25.
Well, we are all outside of the M25, aren't we? You're not quite, Bob, are you?
I'm kind of inside it. Yeah, I think so. But anyway, yeah, all right, don't blame me. The question is, we see the rise, and it's great to see rises in job ads, but it doesn't, the article itself doesn't seem to mention how many of those ads have been satisfied, how many people have actually found employment through those ads.
And I think Paul made a very good point earlier when we were talking about this.
Who, me?
Yes,
Did I?
you.
Yes.
You
Blimey.
did. I know
will
it
have to
had
go
to
and laugh.
happen. Had to
I'll
happen
have to-
one day, didn't it?
By sheer law of averages, yeah. I keep talking long enough, I will make a valid point. The one thing that kind of, again, I come across as this horrible, cynical northern bloke, but I keep one brilliant that there are. It would look like there is a shift to regional employment. And I've banged on about this before, in that we're a horribly London-centric industry, and there's great stuff, great venues, great events outside London, and we really should be looking. We're a tiny, tiny country, and we really shouldn't be focused on one city alone. If you look at the size of the States, they run successful events all over the place, and it's massive. So we should be able to have lots and lots of nodes of brilliance. But the underlying nagging doubt that I have is this, in the back of my mind, is, are these new jobs, or are these jobs created by people leaving the industry? I know there was a discussion on, and I can't remember where it was, about whether the role of people in events. We've worked in events long enough to know that sometimes your days and your work-life balance is skewed horribly towards work, in terms of having to be on site at 5 a.m. with 16 espressos to keep you awake, and knowing that you're going to be there till at least 11 o'clock in the evening when the event shuts. And you might have to back that 2 or 3 days, and then you get to sit down and take a breath. Those kind of jobs are less and less appealing, because people are seeing that an income can be earned not leaving your house or your small workspace, or wherever you choose to work from, because you can work remotely. So I don't want a job that requires me to go and stand in a muddy field in a pouring rain to cover an event. I want to sit at home and I'll make content and I'll publish that onto the internet, and I'm going to go and do stuff that way. Is it because there is less, and it's, I don't want to sound like a whinging old fart, but it's an element of the
Too
work.
late.
Sorry?
Too late.
Too late. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, absolutely. But whether there is a change in the philosophy of work, let's not say work ethic, because I think that's wrong, but because the work ethic myth is all built around being visible and creating volume. It's more the philosophy of work. I can create what I need to create to have my life and my existence within this time window, which then allows me to do that. I don't need to go and kill myself anymore for my employer, or for whoever I'm working for at the time. And it makes me wonder if are people less inclined to want to have the stress, the pressure of working in events on the front line. I've known ops people across live exhibitions, conferences, who burn out, and you watch them fry because they're spinning plates in every single direction, and it just gets to overload. Some people
Absolutely.
thrive on it. Some people thrive on it, and they're a rare breed that they can juggle 27 balls and know where every single ball is in the air all the time. And they are very, very special people. But there's a lot of people who get into that role and then find, 3 balls become 7 balls, become 10 balls, and then crunch, it all comes down.
And I think I remember working with Laura at Stress Matters, little plug for Stress Matters, is an amazing organization. When she launched, it was on the back of some research that was done in the States, saying that an event planner, as they call them over there, was the 3rd most stressful job that you could do. So you had sort of paramedic, firefighter, then you had event planner because of the stress levels. It's ridiculous.
It's an interesting combination as well of there's more job adverts out there, but we're also hearing from people how budgets are smaller.
Oh, yeah, And
so is there funding for these positions? I mean, there must be if they're being advertised, I guess.
Well, conversely, the MIA the MIA do a study of their members every quarter, and the insights from that are really, really interesting. I'd encourage anyone to look at it. And in the last one that they did, 2 out of 3 employers have been struggling to fill vacancies. So the ads might be going out, but are they being filled? Exactly as Paul said.
Right. So I have lots of questions. So If you so these job positions waiting to be filled, and there seems to be people who are waiting to fill them, are the ones who have done an event management degree more likely to secure the place, or someone who's been volunteering for a little while and has been helping out with the organisers? Is a degree still worthwhile? And I must admit, I did carry an article recently saying that they are worthwhile. And I think they are. I think they're definitely worthwhile having. But is there a match between what's wanted in the job advert and what's offered and what's taught in the event management degree?
Oh, that's a very good. You could say that about anything to do with education, that as an educator, you have to ensure that your degree is current and fit for purpose, that you are not using people to teach that have been out of the industry for too long. And I would say that because event management is such a vocational and practical subject, that yes, I would say the majority of unis that I have worked with have lecturers that are in the real world, that they are teaching, they are working as well, they are consultants, they're not just they're not just academics, they are actually they have got that real world experience.
Just one last little thing, event manager jobs. An event manager can be anybody from organising something in a town hall to vast plant machinery that takes up 10 acres. There are different types of event managers, so we're not quite sure what these ads are actually asking for.
Oh, absolutely. There isn't a defined job role.
Yeah.
When the annual event industry salary survey came out a couple of years ago, one of the problems that we had was actually defining, an event manager could be anything from here to here, and I'm waving my arms around in a podcast that's only being recorded, the audio, which is always good, isn't it? But it can be anything from, say, an entry-level job at 20 grand up to 60 grand. We've got those, and they could still be called an event manager. It's really hard to get that consistency.
Well, I think it's because of the way the government records. It's like for the tax records, there's nothing specific for the event industry, so they're having to borrow other tax codes. So maybe the statistics are slightly skewed. I don't know. Anyway, Paul, sorry, I interrupted you.
No, I was just going to say that something very similar. It is a catch-all. One of the interesting things is there's at the meeting show in the session in the morning that I sat in with Holly Patrick, was somebody was talking there about the events industry per se getting its own SIC code, which is the first start of the process of being recognised as an industry sector in and of its own right. So that's a bit of good news.
Are we actually going to get it? Because that's something that I remember Martin Fullard campaigning for back in COVID, and that was a huge thing, if we can.
And Martin Fullard, if all due respect to Martin, was very late to the party on that one, because that's a campaign I can remember running way back when I was young.
Was everything black and white back then?
The industry. No, I can. Going back into the. You must be going back 20 years. Was the talk of how do we get recognition? How do we demonstrate our contribution to GDP? What is the scale, the size? And Chris Skeeth did a load of work on this when he was CEO at the AEO, and that's how we came up with a figure of whatever it was, 1.4 billion, was it, in terms of revenue generation into the UK economy. And how many people it employed and how many jobs it created. And it's huge. And that's taking, I'm going to be doing a Jill now with my hands from one end to the other, where you're looking at everything from people who are event planners who are planning small, discrete family or significant event in people's lives, like weddings and christenings and significant birthdays, who are planning those kind of things, small intimate events, right through to people who are putting on things the size of Glastonbury and things like that. And you've got, you were talking about the scope of salary, but also the scope of the complexity of the
Absolutely.
job that you're involved in. And so it's kind of multidimensional matrix and how you measure what is an event planner. Is an event planner the person who's the top controller of an event like Glastonbury and everything that entails, or and a big team of people to do it, or one person on their own organising somebody's biggest day of their life? And I wouldn't say either of them are any less responsible, but they're just different levels of scale, really. The impact of both is equal, but just on a different size group of people. So I think what was I rambling with that scope and sky? Yeah, kind of. Yeah, sort of. There. So sick code. That's where we get sick code. That's where we were. Yes. So there is something there that we may be getting a sick code. So we may be able to start to attribute some element of employment and salaries in there. And as we start to do that, it might coalesce in terms of giving that amorphous job title some anchors.
Say, well, actually, it brings us nicely on the next thing. So I think in general, we can say it's good news there's more job ads, because that means there's money to pay those people. So there's funding.
I think
there.
so.
So that's generally great news. But jobs and employment brings us nicely onto the next thing, which is you, Paul, with the topic of AI. Again.
Yeah. Yes. Welcome back to the weekly AI session of This Week in the News. I just picked up, I thought it was worth having a look at, because we talked about AI a couple of weeks ago, and it keeps cropping up, and about the use of AI and how it affects what we're doing, and the fact that these are all based on LLMs, so the input is what drives the output. They research and search what's available on the internet to generate content to bring things through. And it was watching a podcast with who were there was Gabby Austin Brown from Diversity Alliance, and James Lancaster from Mondale, MNIT. And it was in one of their meeting room sessions where they do a one-to-one interview. And Gabby was talking about AI, the use of AI, and because we all trundle around with our own personal biases and prejudices locked in our heads, when we are writing prompts for AI, and I'm not suggesting everybody is, but there will be content going there that's already being put forward with a certain bias in the prompt. So the AI engines are starting to learn about that bias and then build that bias into its answers. So we are in danger of programming AI to be biased. It is going to be the output, or the output is going to be the child of all of the inputs we're giving it. And there's nobody, I don't use the word policing, but I can't think of a better one. There's nobody policing.
Well, I was about to ask you, is it a matter of we're using prompts that unconsciously are biased, or is it the actual LLM itself that has been trained on what might be deemed as inappropriate data? And to give an example of that is when X unleashed their LLM called Grok onto what used to be called Twitter, onto X content, everybody seemed to be surprised that Grok came out with totally unreasonable responses. So your data, if you feel that your data is, or what you're extracting from the LLM is coming across as being biased, is it your prompt or is it the data in the LLM? That's the basic question.
Well, it's where the LLM is going to find its information. Because if it is using the entire unit, let's just take as a very simplistic example, if it is taking all of the content on the internet to find where a response to what you're asking it to do, it will then look at what significant information it's finding and assemble that based on what it finds. So if you think about the stuff that's on the internet, there's a wide variety of views, some of which most of us might find palatable and some unpalatable. It's not making a judgment call unless the prompt is telling it to do so, in terms of, well, that's a piece of acceptable and reasonable content that I can retrieve and give to the person who's asked the question. It's just going out and finding what's out there and preparing it. Bearing in mind, it's got a limited intelligence and it doesn't place judgment on what it finds.
But it's sort of this. Sorry, go on, Paul.
Sorry, Joe. I was going to give a quick example. So if you have a parent who swears and uses really foul language in front of their children all the time and thinks nothing of it, should that parent then be surprised if that child starts swearing back at them?
I quite like that analogy.
We know that the internet is full of very dark and nasty areas. So if you're telling LLM, just go and look at it. Doesn't matter. Just go look at everything, no matter how good or how dark it may be. Should we still be having, I keep seeing headlines say, have you seen what this LLM is now saying? We're totally shocked. We shouldn't be shocked because we know what's on it, what's available to look at and to read on the internet. I just see that as people are not being careful enough with the training.
Well, I'm looking at, I've Googled this to see what else is out there, and there's some articles going back to 2024 about how LLMs are, developers have got better at filtering out racist content absorbed through sources like the internet, but it's a lot more covert than that. So this has been going on for years. This, you know, we picked, the world picked up on the fact that AI was racist for over a year ago. And there's several articles on this. It's just, it depends what you put into it. You know, the example that we were talking about earlier that I think Gabby mentions as well, that Amazon or one of the big tech companies asked LLM to filter out CVs, and it said, right, this is what a developer, we're looking for a developer. So these are successful CVs of developers that we've used before. Here are other CVs, go and look for matches. And because the CVs they'd put in for the developers that were successful were male and white, they picked out then the developers' CVs that were male and white. So if there was, even if it was, the CVs didn't say whether somebody was male or female, but it did say that they played for the female hockey team or something like that. So there were subtle nods as to whether somebody was female or male. Now, the CVs that they, you know, they went to match, because all it's doing is predicting, all it's doing is trying to match. So if you're trying to get it to match something and you tell it to match X, don't be surprised that it does match X, even though X might be white and male.
And also, probably slightly more problematic is not that you're actually telling it to match X, you're subconsciously giving it prompts by what you're saying that isn't, you're not saying deliberately do X, as you've just given in that example. You're saying, here's a good one, go find me more good ones. And it looks and goes, well, these are the criteria to make a good one, here's all the good ones. And it not only does that in CVs, it'll do it across all manner of stuff. But certainly the on the video, the YouTube thing, Gabby brings an awful lot of interesting insight to that, and it kind of starts to pick things a point, and then she then drifts off into, she takes the conversation down into areas of consent and is your information being used? Take your example, Jill. You give the I was going to say my CV, but no, that'd be a pretty poor example. But actually, it would be that if it took my CV and looked at me, obviously I may I fall into that very rare group of I am a cis white male of over 50, but this privileged elite. But if you took that just to say, yeah, Paul's got the right experience, use his as an example,
Yeah.
It is going to then pick that up. But did I give them permission to put my information into an LLM as a prompt to go find more of me? Because then that's my information that's suddenly going into the mix. So I'm now all of a sudden out there, and this kind of stuff then perpetuates. And I think she implies, there is a loss of control. It is a bit of a wild animal out there. And certainly if you listen to some of the people who are some of the more skeptical people at the cutting edge of AI development do seem to have some concerns about its lack of boundaries.
Absolutely.
It's for the kind of events industry. If again, I think bringing it back down to something very, very simple. If you're asking it to go and look for a demographic to go to a show, and you're prompting it with a demographic of your previous show, you need to build in positive biases into what your prompt is to say, right, find organization. Let's say, for example, it's an exhibition, a trade show in a particular market sector. You're going to have to actually encourage it to go out and find non-previously conforming things. If let's say 25, 30 years ago, you said, find me MDs of companies, you would find 95% probably greater would be have my profile. And that's what it would return. I mean, it wouldn't return what you really want, which is the best people.
Because it takes that as one of the criteria that you have said that this person is ideal. This person, you be careful what you wish for in a way. And
it does kind of bump into the, as she quite rightly says, the ethics of the whole thing. Are you handing your ethical position as an organization over to an uncontrolled AI model that
I'd like to bring up and expand on something else that Gabby said in the video. So we know that these AI models, they can process images as well as processing words. So you go to an event and to get your badge, to get the permission to enter, to be, able to go and see what they've got going on, you've ticked a box saying, I agree to facial recognition.
But you also have to then upload a photo of yourself. So that's another step.
There's lots of other steps involved, but you go into the event and it recognizes your face. It does AI processing, goes, oh, I know exactly who this is. I'll print the ticket out. And it's all great. But building on what Gabby said, that processing your image, right, is done by a third-party company. You've indicated to the event organizer you're happy with that. But have you indicated your preferences to the third-party company who's using AI to scan your face? Who holds the data? Has the event organizer given acted on your behalf without telling you that your data, your facial information, your biometrics is now held by a third-party company?
Oh, but biometric data is one of the most sensitive parts of GDPR.
But only if the data is held within the UK. If it's held outside of the country, I know I'm just a little bit obsessive about where your data is ultimately held.
And ultimately,
because if your face is
you have a data processing data owner, those agreements are in place. Absolutely.
But the thing is, as I say, if you've agreed with the wording on the event, has to be explicit enough to say that we're on your behalf, we're telling this third-party company that it's okay to process and store your biometric data. Now, whether it's under GDPR or not, do you get a chance to say, no, please don't scan my face? I know we're drifting off into another subject, but it's AI is involved and it's all about data storage, as Paul was talking about.
And facial recognition is racist. It really is.
Oh, it
really
has trouble with non-white faces and all sorts.
Definitely. But it's very, biometric data is incredibly sensitive personal data as defined by GDPR. And I don't get facial recognition. Why would you need to do that? Why?
Can I ask a question? I'm just going to show my absolute ignorance of facial recognition now. When you're saying facial recognition is ultimately biased and possibly racist, is that because of the software not being developed to recognize all facial types of all racial
exactly
groups?
that.
Well, again, it's training data, as we've been discussing for LLMs. Not only does it have to be unbiased, or at least not seem to be biased in any shape or form with the content it puts out in words, but also with image processing.
Yeah.
I mean, it's touching in all sorts of different areas now that we may not be aware of all of them. And then there's security and personal information concerns, like who ultimately holds the data, especially when third-party companies are involved.
That's very defined in GDPR. You know, you will find that any data provider, any data gathering company has very, very strict rules and regulations about who owns the data and who's the processor exactly.
Right. Again, I don't want to go on about this because it's listeners have probably had enough of this, especially from me. But the thing is, if it's held by a third company, and I'm talking about Facebook, Google, anybody else, these small companies that have popped up who've got access to servers, understands AI, who can do facial image processing for facial recognition, but they're a small, well-funded startup in America somewhere. If you disagree, or they do something with your data that you don't like, how do you then resolve the issue and stop them from using it because they're not in country and you're just blogs who's gone to a show and you didn't like what they did with it?
I think that then comes back to the organizer, that the organizer has a responsibility to only use a company that, you know, as a visitor, don't, you know, you bring it up with the organizer and you make sure that you vote with your feet, that if the organizer does something wrong, you don't go back to that show and you make a.
And I'm sure listeners are going, yeah, but nobody uses facial recognition anymore. Oh, it's such old technology. We don't use it. It's such a pain. I'm sure it is. And I'd like to see what the use case for it is.
Oh, absolutely. Because at the end of the day, you are comparing that person to a photo that they have uploaded. And you don't, it's to me, facial recognition for events is like using a sledgehammer to crack a tiny nut. You really don't need to. Yeah, it's why? Why would you invest? Why?
Yeah, just demonstrate the use case. I got a feeling that we've probably gone through these topics as much as people can stand. You know, we've just gone on about it, but there's some plenty of great points have been made about the jobs, about AI, about all of it. So for the listener, I would love your feedback. Please get back and leave a comment wherever you see this or listen to this episode rather, and just fire back some advice, your thoughts about how you see this all going.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Great. Bob, just one, because we're regularly citing external references, I just think it might be helpful is when we put the podcast live, whether we put links to the reference material, things that we're talking about.
I always do. See, Paul doesn't keep up. I don't know whether it's the age or whatever. I don't know. But yes, the show notes will have links to Gabby's video, to the jobs report, and of course who was it? Oh, it was Presso. Yes, it was Presso. The Presso post on LinkedIn. So if you're a LinkedIn member, you can go and read it. Yes, everything will be in there, including links to you, good people.
Oh, you're too kind.
Yeah, I probably am.
Oh,
and I just want to say apologies to Paul. I picked on you a bit today. I'm still laughing. Nothing new.
Nothing new. I'm going for a meeting with HR to discuss this.
You can fire me.
Just for the benefit of listeners, could you just remind us who is head of HR?
Well, here. Yeah, that
I was going to say it must be Ernie, surely.
Job.
Yeah, Ernie is head of HR. Yeah. Well, we'll put headphones and a microphone in front of him at some point and just get him to chime in.
Oh, thanks, guys. That was great.
Thank you so much for, that was really, really good. Again, I encourage listeners to give us some feedback. What do you think of the topics? Did we miss something, or did we just not understand it and talk rubbish for far too long? I don't know. But yeah,
Fair enough.
definitely get back to it. So yeah, that's it for today.
Thank you very much. Have a good one.
Have a great weekend, folks.
And cut.
This Week in Events is a production for the EPN Journal podcast. A huge thanks to our patrons, partners and industry friends for helping to make this possible. Details of how you can be a patron are in the show notes and on the EPN Journal website. Thanks for listening.